Hello, I'm Kristen Oaks White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. At the time we're shooting this show, the federal government has been shut down for 36 days, the longest ever shutdown in American history. The deadlock means federally funded programs are on hold.
Many of those programs help support the nation's food supply. SNAP benefits, school meals, and farmer assistance are all in limbo right now. As TWILA's Josh Meeks explains, this couldn't come at a worse time for our food producers.
This is actually one of 2,000 offices around the country.
Speaking outside the FSA Service Center in Amite, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins celebrated the reopening of 2,100 offices around the country, ready to process roughly $3 billion in aid to farmers.
As our farmers are harvesting right now, without the checks that they're getting from this office behind me, they can't make their plans and plant for next year. So it really did become a food supply issue that the president recognizes and we at USDA are working to solve for every day.
The funding to reopen and staff these offices comes from the USDA's Commodity Credit Corporation. It's significant, but depending on how long the shutdown goes, it's not sustainable forever.
We are able to continue, obviously not forever, but at least for the foreseeable future.
But with only a few staff members back on the job, Louisiana Farm Bureau Public Policy Director Andy Brown says it's still not enough to cover farmers' needs.
But anything partially open is not really fully functioning. Any engine, just barely running doesn't get you where you need to go. So we're certainly looking for Congress to do what they need to do, get a continuing resolution passed or get the government back open in some fashion. But it was a welcome extra effort that the administration gave, that Secretary Rollins gave to find some money to get 2 staff per office open to let farmers have some sort of contact with USDA and the Farm Service Agency.
Brown says the shutdown comes at a critical time when farmers rely on government-backed loans and risk management programs to prepare for planting season.
If those things don't get processed in this economic climate, farmers aren't going to be able to purchase seed, service equipment, pay their bills on time to get their crop ready to plant next spring if things don't really start to happen soon.
And that's really the goal here is let's just get the government open and we'll negotiate all the stuff later. But right now we just need to get the government open.
Now, as we speak, Andy Brown is in Washington, D.C., meeting with Senator Bill Cassidy, Representative Clay Higgins, and others to highlight just how serious things are back home without a working federal government. And guys, even when things do get back up and running, there's going to be a lot of ripple effects felt from 36 plus days of a government shutdown. There's 2 big things that you're not seeing in headlines right now. One of those is that while these programs and offices are being funded, the staffing might be an issue because there's a lot of people who are taking early buyouts, retirement, other things like that. And on the other side, there are farmers who are looking at this and saying, is it even going to be worth it once the government is back up and running?
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but can you tell us when you think the government might reopen?
I don't know when it's going to reopen, but I can tell you that when it does, there's a couple of things that are in the works right now. Congresswoman Julia Letlow is backing a bill that will bridge some gap payments and free up some funding that would eventually be open to farmers to give it to them now. But none of that could be distributed until the government is back up and running.
Josh Meeks, important story, but thank you for bringing it to us.
Billions of USDA dollars initially shifted to benefit farmers is now on hold after heavy criticisms from Congress. The Department of Agriculture moved $13 billion from its Commodity Credit Corporation into a new Farmers Support Program designed to fund tariff relief. Lawmakers say they were not informed of the move, which could create bigger shortfalls in other programs. $3 billion was moved back into the Commodity Credit Corporation. The remaining $10 billion is awaiting activation of the tariff relief program. Some rice farmers are in the fields finishing up their second crop of rice this year, called the ratoon crop. However, some are not.
This week, TWILA's Neil Melanson takes us to Acadia Parish, where the economics of rice are making things difficult for rice farmers, regardless of what decisions they're making.
3 generations of Fries are standing here. That's Tom in blue with his dad Kim and Tom's son Cooper. They're busy this time of year bringing in the ratoon crop. Tom's on the combine while Cooper is running the cart. Tom says the second crop is down from the past 2 years.
It just depends on what variety. And but yeah, I mean the second crop yields are off from last year. Well, actually from the past 2 years, they're off. Down, but all in all, it's not a crop failure, but it is down.
It's not the only thing that's down. Prices have fallen off severely while input costs remain high. That's causing a lot of concern for rice farmers in Acadia Parish and starting a lot of tough conversations with bankers.
Fertilizer, of course, went up as well. Urea's up and fuel. So yeah, I mean it's tough. Of course, our input costs are higher than we would like, and of course what we're getting for the crop is lower than what we would like as well. So it's tough.
Kim Fry wants to see his grandson take over the family farm. He's in high school and planning to get into the trades to help with the farm's equipment. However, Kim says this is the worst economic conditions he's seen in his 51 years of farming.
It's been at least 25 years since we've seen prices where they are today. And that, of course, is hurting the economy of South Louisiana, of just about every rice farmer I know, because that price is so low. And again, our expenses are so extremely high when it's going to cost you $900 to $1,000 to produce an acre of rice, complete from planting through drying and harvest.
Meanwhile, their neighbor Eric Link has some pretty good-looking rice, but he's not going to cut most of it. He says it's better used as food for crawfish and hopes that will cash flow the farm.
I had backed off just because of the prices of rice. I find it didn't justify on, because I follow everything with crawfish, so I didn't find it justified messing up the crawfish ponds with the prices of the rice.
Sadly, many of the rice fields like the one behind me, even though it's a good-looking rice crop, won't be harvested this year, and that has cascading effects into the rural economies such as here in Acadia Parish. It's a bad seed that's going to have a bad economic harvest in 2026 and beyond. Reporting from Acadia Parish, I'm Neil Malasaw.
The second crop of rice is normally harvested from late October to early November. Well, here's something you can check on your next trip to the grocery store. Imported rice accounts for about 25% of the U.S. market. That's according to the USDA, based on data from 2023.
If Congressman Clay Higgins and several other Louisiana officials, including Louisiana Farm Bureau President Richard Fontenot, had their way, that would change immediately.
The rice you see in this field is grown in Louisiana, harvested in Louisiana, and likely milled in Louisiana. When you go to the grocery store, this is what you'll see. This photo is from a grocery store in Ville Platte. The shelves are filled with rice, but when you highlight how much of it is imported from outside of the United States, the story is a little different.
We have to act right now to address these concerns, which include the illegal and unethical dumping of agricultural product into America. I'm one of those voices that would prefer the United States to be quite aggressive in pushing back on unfair imports that injure American farm families.
That's why Louisiana 3rd District Congressman Clay Higgins met with Louisiana Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry, Dr. Mike Strain, and Louisiana Farm Bureau President Richard Fontenot. Together, they, along with Governor Jeff Landry, signed this letter to President Donald Trump, asking him to immediately halt all imports of rice, crawfish, and shrimp.
There's the buttons that would be considered to be very aggressive to push those buttons. But I support pushing those buttons to help American farmers, not just right now, man, but over the horizon. We talked about that today, the next generation of Louisiana farmers and farm families and across the country. You know, agriculture is like the cornerstone that we build everything on.
That letter, signed by Congressman Higgins, President Fontenot, Commissioner Strain, and Governor Jeff Landry, is now at the White House. We'll keep you updated if any action comes from it. Pecans are a perfect addition to your holiday table, and they are plentiful here in Louisiana. According to the most recent LSU Ag Center Ag Summary, Louisiana pecans contribute nearly $10 million to the state's economy.
This week, the Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee traveled to one of those farms along LA1 in Natchitoches Parish to learn more about the nutty goodness falling from above.
I'm Michelle Semino, State Chair for the Women's Leadership Committee, and we're here today in Chopin, Louisiana, visiting Little Eva's Pecan House. We're going to talk about our leadership conference that's coming up on January 23rd and 24th. That'll be held in Baton Rouge. It's good for us to come together, you know, keep our friendships going, learn about other people's culture in this central Louisiana, and take care of some Farm Bureau business that we need to.
Well, it's very important because I think Farm Bureau is a great family, and I enjoy being together with them, and we learn a lot about the different commodities that everybody in Louisiana has.
I think the relationships of the Farm Bureau family are the most important things. We have friends from north to south, east to west, and that's what Farm Bureau is all about. It's about family. It's about helping your friends, knowing their struggles, knowing their blessings. So it's really about being a Farm Bureau family.
Family-oriented, definitely the community and learning about each other's commodities and just being one big family. Farm Bureau is our family. I love pecans. I grew up with having a pecan tree, and I love picking pecans, and I love cracking them, and I like peeling them. So it was very homey for me today. It brought back some memories.
It is really interesting to learn the struggles that the pecan industry faces. You know, every farmer has the same struggles. It may not be this year, it'll be next year, it'll be that year, but everybody goes through the same things, and it's good just to make new friends, meet new people, learn about this niche in central Louisiana, and hopefully some people passing from north to south will stop here.
It is definitely good to be well-rounded. We don't get to see any kind of pecan industry of what we see in today. We're a small community of that sort. So yes, it's great to see what everybody else does and how do they produce the pecans and get them out to everywhere in Louisiana.
If you ever are passing on LA 1 all the way in Chopin, stop in at Eva's Little Pecan Factory.
Now, if you're having a little FOMO after seeing this, fear no mo, because there is another opportunity around the corner to get involved with the Women's Leadership Committee. Next week, the committee will begin its fall visits to veterans' homes across the state. To learn more about these events and the Women's Leadership Committee, head over to our website at twilatv.org. I didn't write that, by the way.
We could tell. It's okay.
Just saying.
One would think that I wrote that, but I'm not going to lay claim to that either.
Still to come on TWILA, the Farm Bureau empowers a Louisiana veterinarian to lead her community.
But first, we go beyond just harvesting rice in this week's Fueling the Future. Stay with us.
You're watching This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
We're coming off the heels of two of the state's largest rice celebrations, the International Rice Festival and the Yellow Rails and Rice Festival in Jennings.
Yeah, it's fitting that this week's Fueling the Future agritourism segment gets closer to the grain. Suzanne Ferreira joins us now with the story of preservation from the Rice Belt.
And guys, Commissioner Strain says Louisiana still ranks third in the world when it comes to rice production. It's really hard to fathom, but that's thanks to all of the hands involved throughout the state. We introduce you to two men giving the folks an intimate look at the ever-important grain. There's no place that prides itself on rice quite like Acadia Parish. It's home to Crowley, the rice capital of the world, and the birthplace of the iconic International Rice Festival. The southwestern parish is only second to adjoining Jeff Davis Parish in rice production. This vital commodity is celebrated and worn like a badge of honor here. This is also where you'll find America's first rice research station, a preeminent institution, ushering sustainable solutions while fueling global food security for more than a century. And it's not just anywhere that you can step inside a city hall and find an extensive exhibit unfolding the stories of the grain's laborious beginnings on the Cajun prairies. That journey includes its complex evolution and local pioneers who transformed trajectories with their ingenuity. Along Crowley's railroad tracks that skirt historic Mill Street, remnants of the past dot the landscape like a life-size museum of relics. Notice the towering rice mills standing like skyscrapers in the backdrop. a reminder of the proud soul of its surrounding communities. Amid this scene stands the thriving and immense Supreme Rice, one of the country's premier grain exporters, and right across the street is Falcon Rice Mill. While Supreme dwarfs Falcon in size, don't underestimate the brawn behind the third-generation family-owned mill.
This is our quarter grains. So this is what's coming out. It looks like grits.
Dwayne Fulton fervently preserves his family's rice legacy and proudly leaves public tours of the mill that produces Cajun Country rice and other premium brands.
And whatever numbers we get here, the mill has to replicate that as it's going through the mill.
The U.S. military and law enforcement veteran oozes dedication and runs the mill that's technologically evolved like a well-oiled machine.
Hopefully, Ed and Evelyn Falcon were smiling on us with all the changes that we've done throughout our 16, 17 years here. And I think that they would be proud of their grandkids.
But while looking to the future, he never loses sight of founders Edward and Evelyn Falcon.
I am a firm believer in prayer is powerful.
In fact, a 3-page prayer, written in English and French by Mrs. Falcon following her husband's sudden death. It was unexpectedly discovered tacked high above a closet wall during renovations.
She wrote for health of the business. Miss Evelyn became very scared as to what was going to happen to the company.
What was it like when y'all found the prayer?
It was a surreal feeling, to say the least. To me, it was perfect as to understand why back in the day there were 14 to 16 mills up and down Mill Street, and now we have 2.
And you're one of them.
That's right.
Traveling about 100 miles away to Iberia Parish, you'll discover the oldest rice mill in America, the Conrad Rice Mill. The more than a century-old mill on the National Historic Registry produces Conrico brand rice varieties and includes the Conrico Company store.
We opened this valve up, and it's just a very unscientific looking thing.
80-year-old Mike Davis, who purchased the mill 50 years ago, exudes genuine enthusiasm as he shows tourists this rare surviving beauty that still uses belt drive transmission.
I tell everybody we have a geriatrics packing line over here. I mean, we go from the youngest guy is like 69 and the oldest guy is like 83. But we're still working here, the people from the neighborhood that know what to do.
You can't help but feel the history here and imagine the dust filling the mill as rough rice was brought in from the hard-working farmers throughout Acadiana.
I'm thinking it's a very important thing to keep this old mill operating and keep it going here. We could always go show them the stainless steel fancy places, but to see how their mother and their parents and their grandparents and how they used to work and how we still have big flywheels with leather belts working on it, I think you don't want to lose that heritage.
This couple from Seattle is getting an earful about the rice process.
We can actually buy this rice in the grocery stores where I'm from, so it was interesting to see how it's processed.
Meanwhile, inside the Conrico Country Store, Mike Davis's wife Sandra is helping guide visitors.
Why is it fun? Because I get to meet people from all over the world.
LSU ag agent Kim Landry, whose father and grandfather's grain passed through this mill during their farming careers, says it's historically significant and it plays a fundamental role in Louisiana's agritourism.
But it keeps the history alive and allows people to see how we've evolved in the rice industry, and allows people to see the importance of rice and what we've done with the evolution of rice.
Louisiana's Commissioner of Agriculture, Mike Strain, says grasping the complexity of the rice process before it hits the stovetop and onto plates is essential.
So that people understand when you go to cook your rice and you get that scoop out of the bag or out of that container, that they have a fundamental understanding of all the many things it takes to get that rice to you. So it's important, but anything we can do to continue the legacy and the understanding of what we do, because it's about this generation, but it's really about the next generation as well.
And all generations can take part in these fantastic tours. You just need to call ahead if you have a large group, if you're going over to the Conrad Mill in Iberia Parish.
Well, the Conrad Rice Mill, it's in my hometown, New Iberia. Been to it many times. Great place to go. It is the Berry. So any surprises while you were doing this, Suzanne?
Food safety certifications. You learn about how much, they have to go through so much red tape with that, and that is enormous. But also, you can get a Cuban sandwich over at the Conrad Mill that has their special sauce, which you can purchase at their country store.
I guess I have to go back home. Thank you so much, Suzanne Ferreira.
Absolutely.
13 farm and ranch women graduated from the National Women's Communications Boot Camp, including 2 from Louisiana. Dr. Mary Lynn Waddle of DeSoto Parish and Cynthia Doise of Jeff Davis Parish were among this year's graduates in Washington, D.C. The boot camp is a 4-day course that focuses on public speaking and working with the media. This camp is vital for getting Farm Bureau leaders engaged with their lawmakers on issues that directly impact farmers and ranchers. Dr. Waddle says she's, quote, looking forward to continue advocating for the ones who need a voice in this world.
Still to come on TWILA, got some leftover pumpkins on your porch post-Halloween? We've got some ideas to keep them useful. Halloween's over, though I'm still wearing my costume. Chances are your porch is still covered in pumpkins, but before you toss them, Kristen, I think you found a few ways to make them last longer.
I did. And most people are quick to toss these fall beauties in the dumpster this time of year, but why? Pumpkins can be a treat all the way through Thanksgiving. You can swap out the spooky for a few mums and corn stalks, and you've got the perfect harvest porch until it's time to start hanging those Christmas lights. If your pumpkins aren't painted or carved, don't waste them. Feed your garden or your chickens. They're full of nutrients for compost, and your hens will think it's the best fall snack that they've ever had. And it's not just chickens. Lots of critters love pumpkins, from raccoons and deer to my 4-legged bovines. My cows actually broke through the fence and stormed the pumpkin patch like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. Apparently, pumpkins are like candy for cows, full of natural sugars, vitamins, and that perfect fall flavor. So while I thought I'd be composting them, feeding a few to the chickens, maybe roasting one for a pie, the cows decided that they'd handle the cleanup this year. It's one of the best ways to recycle those leftovers, and clearly mine approve. Next year, I might just skip the fence altogether and plant the patch inside the pasture.
So apparently, pumpkin season applies to cattle as well. I didn't know that. I thought that was just like a Starbucks thing.
Well, apparently it also applies to the fact that we might need a new fence after this, because the fence was not in great shape to begin with, but when I started feeding them, it's like they got a taste of the cracked pumpkin, apparently, and they just keep pushing through.
So we know which cows are getting sold first, right? Those are the first ones going on the truck?
I don't know. Prices aren't great right now, but another story for another day.
Well, that'll do it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll take you to Nichols University in Thibodaux, where seafood is on the menu and the topic of discussion.
Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can also find all of these stories on our YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you know when we put out new content.
For all of us here at TWILA, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.